So why do most people go broke? The same reason our states are going broke and our country's going broke. The reason is they do not understand the basics of money. They don't understand, for example, why a 1964 quarter is worth $7 and a 1971 quarter is worth 30 cents. They just don't understand money. And because people don't understand money, they continue to elect idiots to run their states who don't understand money. So the real question is, which state will be the first to go bankrupt? How will it affect me if I live there? And how will it affect me if I own there or are investing there? The truth is, most people don't really want the truth. They just want constant reassurance that what they believe is the truth. But now let's really look at the truth. A great website that I found called Truth in Accounting actually takes each state and looks at their assets and liabilities, all 50 states, which include the unreported liabilities, which of course include pensions and benefits. I believe we live in the greatest country on the planet. But you know what? Most states don't even have the money to pay their bills. In fact, if you took all 50 states, they take in around $2 trillion worth of revenue or assets to pay bills, including their debt and unfunded retirement benefits that amount to about $2.9 trillion. If you just look at the revenue and the expenses of all 50 states, they're almost $1 trillion negative annually. So the question you need to ask yourself is, if I'm in debt and can't afford to pay my bills and I ask you for money, would you lend it to me? If the answer is no, then why aren't you paying attention to your own state and federal government? Why do we allow this? Why aren't we looking underneath the hood as we are investing into those states or living in those states? We do have a voice, and we can't elect people to be fiscally responsible for our own communities. So the question is, which state will be the first to go bankrupt? So Truth in Accounting actually broke this down. They rated each state A, B, C, D, F, and they also broke it down. Is there a taxpayer surplus or is there a taxpayer burden? In other words, some states are run very well. In other words, they have more assets than they have liabilities, and some have way more liabilities than they have assets. What's interesting to note is that every state except Vermont has a balanced budget requirement, but apparently nobody looks at this stuff. That means that to balance the budget, the law requires 49 states should not carry any debt. Yet they do carry a large burden of debt in most cases. It might surprise you that 28 of the states do not even have enough money to pay all of their bills. You don't believe me? Take a look at this report. So now let's take a look at the top 5 and the bottom 5. So the number 1 spot is Alaska, and has almost $80,000 per taxpayer of surplus, and this is primarily because of their oil. In the last spot is New Jersey, where they need $179 billion just to pay their bills. And they have a tax burden of $53,600 per taxpayer. The difference between these two states is $133,600 per taxpayer. So I'll let you make the decision. Which state is run better fiscally? Which state would you rather invest your money in? So by far, one of the biggest issues that you all need to take a look at would be the unfunded pension liabilities for each state. Right now, nationwide, most states only have 71 cents for every dollar. The bigger issue, however, are the unfunded OPEB, or post-employment benefit liabilities, where there's only 11 cents per dollar. So you might be asking yourself, why am I talking about all this information? The reason is these debts are going to be a problem later for real estate investors. These debts will be paid one day, and they will make their way in the form of higher property taxes. And as you guys know, property taxes is one of the biggest expenses for a real estate investor. What's even more interesting is no state has ever declared bankruptcy. And with the exception of Arkansas in 1933, it has been almost 150 years since any state has even defaulted on their debts. There is actually no roadmap for what happens when a state goes bankrupt. State bankruptcies aren't even allowed today, and for that to happen, Congress would have to pass a law allowing it. However, in 2017, Puerto Rico, which is part of the U.S. territory, actually did make its way into U.S. bankruptcy court. And while this is playing out right now, The end result of any bankruptcy, as you know, is a reduction of the debt, which of course is unfunded pensions and liabilities to people just like you and me. These folks are going to get pennies on the dollar on what they were promised. Their promises will not be fulfilled. And this is what I need you to look at as you start to look at where you're going to invest, which states are the best run states in the union. One of the big considerations during your investing journey is to take a look at the states that are fiscally responsible. Which states focus on assets so they have enough to pay their liabilities? Because if you do not do this, those unfunded liabilities are going to make their way into your own pocketbook if you invest there, traditionally in the form of higher taxes. So as of today, which state will be the first one to go bankrupt? Well, I would stay away from New Jersey, Connecticut, Illinois, Massachusetts, and Hawaii. If you take a look at these states, they have a grade of an F as shown in truthandaccounting.org. When you jump over to the federal side, you see that they actually report a significantly higher debt of $161 trillion as compared to the 33 that the U.S. is publishing today. The difference, of course, being the unfunded liabilities, as we pointed out in this video. So obviously, this is just one of the many factors that you guys want to consider when you're investing. But I think it's a big one because most of these states are not well run. We, the people, are electing these people. And so if they can't run their state well, why would you invest there? Because you have potential risk of higher taxes down the road.